So today I'm interviewing Ben Stockton, owner of our virtual academy. Particularly, it's about the use of VR, virtual reality, in the automotive industry. So the first question, what got you interested in using VR for technician training?
First time I used VR was many years ago. It was on a developer version of Oculus Rift, I think it was called, and uh, and it was playing a game. And I was in I was in an articulated truck. I've got no idea what the game was. It was a friend of mine's in China, and um, and I wanted to reverse, and I had to look out the window. And as I looked out the window, and I saw the trailer behind me, it just felt real. It felt like I was there, felt like I really was looking out of a window. And at that moment, I just started to appreciate the power of virtual reality and what it can do and how it can take someone into a totally different environment. And that sort of sparked my interest in it. And it was then a matter of keeping an eye out for a commercial opportunity to be able to start playing with it and see what was possible in the automotive training landscape.
Hmm. So roughly how long ago was that? Because I remember I did some VR
Mm.
programming in 1999.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
you're way ahead of me there. It would have been 2011,
that's still
2012.
That's still a long time ago in the world of technology. Uh,
Mm.
so, in the world of automotive training, how is technology? What's the uptake like? Are your end users, are the workshops, are the mechanics, are the owners ready to take up technology, or is there a bit of hesitancy?
We will see. Um, the early indications are that it's vehicle manufacturers who are most interested in the technology at the moment, um, as well as some large players in the independent aftermarket. Um, how long it takes to filter down to individual workshops, I'm not sure of,
Mm.
but it's coming.
Okay, to me that seems that's quite a long time for it to come into the automotive industry. Because
Mm.
you picked it up a long time ago. We know it's existed for a very long time. So it's something I think like the dealerships could really use a lot of. How do you envisage the dealerships, the manufacturers using it?
Well, I think the reason why there's been um, a long period of time between when VR headsets first appearing on the scene and when it starts getting used in anger is the technology, the sorts of things that people would want to train using VR technology and what the technology can allow. And it's arguably only been in the last few years that technology is anywhere near to um, close enough to good enough
Being good enough. Yeah.
to be used.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be the delay. And then remind me, what was the second part of your question, please?
Um, Would the dealerships, are they sort of really interested now to find out more how they could use it now? Technology has caught up, making it more user friendly.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Well, the it isn't the dealerships who would classically be the customer. The customer would be the manufacturer themselves.
Okay.
that
Right.
is looking to develop a learning program around perhaps a new model vehicle. And then the dealerships, the centers, and the staff within those centers would be the end using customers, you could say.
Yeah.
But yeah, the people that commission it tends to be the big boys.
Right. Okay. So when you saw the opportunity, sort of, what was your original goal?
Well, there's a couple really. From an apprenticeship perspective, there's interest in using technology to deliver training in different ways. And so there's a broad market um, through colleges and training providers in the area of delivering interesting approaches to training. Um,
It's about bringing I suppose, a new delivery method, I suppose, and making the technology training more engaging.
yeah, well, where VR can be very strong is that you can create training experiences using expensive equipment without needing that expensive equipment in the workshop of
Oh,
your
right.
training center.
Okay. That's good then.
You know, that's 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 quite a big thing. So if there's ways of being able to make training delivery of a broader standard due to different things being um, featured in the training courses, then it's going to help providers and learners gain this broader experience.
Mm. Okay, so it'll help me, and I think our viewers as well. So, can you walk us through an example of how a learner might use VR to train on a complex system?
Yeah, so procedure is an area where virtual reality can be very strong. So so for example, um, if there was a specific procedure associated to servicing a vehicle, to carrying out pre-delivery inspections, PDIs, to um, stripping down a high voltage battery, um, carrying out a high voltage isolation procedure. Um, any of those sorts of things can be taught very nicely in VR, and through putting in a virtual coach or a virtual instructor inside that virtual environment, then the learner can learn some of the whys as well as the whats when it comes to different different procedures being taught. Um, Another sort of example could be familiarization of something, be it a vehicle or tooling.
Hmm.
You know, imagine an ADAS um, rig that potentially might cost, I don't know, anywhere between like 10 and 25,000 pound. Um, Now you could get a learner to use that equipment and potentially try before they buy or get trained on how to use it before it's arrived in the workshop. So once it's in the workshop, they're ready to get going and utilizing it um, even even quicker.
Wow,
Whereas
yeah,
moving around things like that in the back of a van is much more
yeah.
problematic.
That sounds amazing. So, in the VR world, you can have the ADAS rig,
Mm. You can have
and
anything you want.
you can have anything you want, and they can work, they can watch and interact with it, sort of.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Yeah, so they could um, set it up. They could connect it to the vehicle. They could use a diagnostic tool to communicate with the vehicle. They could see what you'd expect to see on the screen. You could carry out a calibration. You could, if you could do it in the real world, you could do it in VR. Where VR would have nuances is, you know, in my opinion, it wouldn't be particularly wise to try and teach someone how to, say, use a torque wrench, for example.
Mm.
You know, the actual mechanical operation of trying to simulate the feeling of a click when it hits the correct torque setting. You know, simulating something like that would be a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But to teach the importance of using that and teach how to access the technical data or whatever, that's where the VR element would work with it.
Mm. Okay, so you've mentioned before, I think on the website, that VR can be used to teach people how to complete an assessment. Could you give us a bit more detail how that would work in practice?
Yeah, so we never want to teach people how to simply pass an assessment. We want to teach people the breadth of knowledge required to be able to pass an assessment and also to be able to do the job for real. Um, so so one of the current projects we're working on at the moment is conducting a high voltage isolation procedure on a plug-in Prius. And we can teach that process and really go to town on adding some intricate technical detail, um, covering off some lovely best practice points. But once we've then taught the learner how to do these actions, what these actions should be, and what sort of order would be sensible to do them in, we can then put them into the same sort of environment, but instead of it being a teaching environment, it can be an assessment environment.
Okay.
And we can monitor their actions and we can set the assessment criteria to be very accurate and fair and consistent. And with a combination of delivering a high quality training approach combined with a high quality assessment approach, then that will allow an employer to genuinely know whether their member of staff is appropriately trained to be left to do whatever job in question. And in this instance, we're
Mm.
talking high voltage isolation procedure.
Okay, so that's what you mean by sort of going beyond passing the test. So is it like playing a game? If
Well,
you play,
yeah,
well, what mention brands, but
yeah.
would it be like that? So therefore, in an assessment situation, is I mean, there any input from the assessor or
Mm.
like a
Yeah,
real life person?
so so the virtual reality experience itself could be described as being like a game, but it's an educational game.
Okay.
There's a point to the game. And the game can be geared to teach and make someone learn. And then the assessment process can be designed to see how much they're remembering. And if they remember the key things in the key order and don't miss out any relevant requirements, then they're able to pass. And you're going to always get a consistency of assessment decision. Whereas when human beings get involved, it's
Yeah.
possible for that to vary. And that consistency carries weight. And with health and safety requirements that employers have and their duty of care to their staff, giving employers the confidence that their staff are truly at the appropriate place is a good thing for any large employer,
Mm.
any small employer too.
Yeah. Okay, so that goes on to my next question. So they've done the training, they've done the assessment. The next step is the real on the workshop floor. Um,
Mm,
is there any, could you just say to the member of staff, go off, go and do the test on the real
mm,
vehicle? Or
mm,
is there still necessarily a little bit of handover, so to speak, into the
mm,
real world?
mm. So our our target that I'm not sure how achievable it is yet is for there to not need to be a transition
Yeah.
between virtual reality and reality. Um, but I believe it is more than likely going to be an ongoing work in progress forever and a day.
Mm.
And so I would imagine the vast majority will want there to be a human element added in before people get let loose on whatever the task in hand is, just to make sure that everything has been absorbed in the way that we expect. Um, and I believe that with time, as we discover areas where we can optimize what's taken place in the VR world, the amount of human interaction after it can potentially get less and less.
Okay, so because you're very much at well, you've been doing it a long time, but it's sort of proof of concept for delivery. So, what does sort of this stage involve?
Mm. Yeah, so we've been working with VR since certainly 2020, might have even been 2019. Um, so we've got quite a lot of experience under our belts, but what we're doing this time is we're really focusing on a an approach to delivering training and an approach to assessment, and we are optimizing. So we are simply trying to get the headset on as many people's heads as possible, as many decision makers' heads as possible, and just work through feedback and try and make sure that what we are designing that we believe is good is well received by the end users. Um, we're pretty much there with the training scene now. There's still a few little tweaks. There's a bit of script editing that I'm doing this afternoon, in fact. Um, and it's the assessment scene which is our next challenge, because assessments have got to be fair. Um, Fair assessment is key. Um, so we will need to design in quite a bit in the coding to make sure that learners aren't getting unfairly marked down for an action that might not be a conventional an action conducted in a conventional order. It might be out of order, but we need the software to be
Yeah.
able to accommodate that. Yeah, they've done it in a different order, but just because they did it
Yes.
in that order doesn't mean it is dangerous or a
Yes. Yeah.
critical fail.
Mm.
And so that's going to take a bit of work, and that's our current area where we're just enjoying playing with the technology to ensure that we do design a absolutely fair assessment process that is um, the target is to be better than the average human assessor out there.
Yes, I know our virtual academy were at a recent automotive industry show, and you were demoing some of this. What was the impact you were seeing from running the demo?
It was fantastic. I was run off my feet
Wow.
for the
Yeah.
full 3 days, pretty much. We had some great feedback. The feedback gave us confidence that the approach that we're taking, which is novel in comparison to the wider market, is on the right track.
Yeah,
Um,
that leads
w-
into my next question. What sets your VR apart from
mm,
any others?
mm, yeah, yeah. So I'll focus on the training and I'll focus on the assessment, I would say. Um, we we produce quite a pretty VR experience, but there's lots of very talented modelers out there. Um, but we're first and foremost a training company,
Yeah.
not a software company.
Hmm.
And the focus of what we produce is always going to be about quality of training, delivery, and in turn, fair assessment process.
Yes.
Um, and that's quite a hard thing to achieve if you're not from this industry. And
Yes.
and and I think that's one of the things that sets us apart. Um, the system's very reliable,
Hmm.
whereas there's quite a lot of glitchy versions out there as well. And I think we're doing a pretty good job on choosing what bits are worth teaching in VR and what bits are not.
And not, yes.
We don't
Mhm.
need to teach someone how to open the bonnet of a car, for example,
Yeah.
providing it's a conventional bonnet mechanism.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, um,
I struggle with those sometimes.
yeah, yeah. Well, me too. I've sometimes I don't always find the latch
Yeah.
as quickly as I would like when tackling a new bonnet.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So I think our main difference is that we're an automotive technical training company, and the
Yeah.
focus is on that. Then,
Mm.
sort of getting back to your previous point regarding um, feedback, we had some very good feedback from large players who wanted to take things further, and that's all good. That's progressing nicely. But we also had we had a we had a technician who'd quite young, 20s,
Hmm.
I think, who was really passionate about electric vehicle technology, really keen to learn. And you know what? He spent about 2 to 2.5 hours straight using it.
Wow. Yeah.
And he got to the end of the process, and he was beaming, and he looked blown away.
Yeah.
He looked like he'd witnessed something from the future.
Yeah.
And he said something along the lines of it was the best learning experience he'd ever had. Now, they're strong words.
Yes.
And hearing people say things like that is, as I say, gives you
Mm.
confidence. I had another one very recently, where I was demoing it to a vehicle manufacturer, and they wanted someone technical to use it in this most recent version of the demo
Yeah.
to sense check the technical content of what we've produced. And the guy took the headset off after about an hour and a half of using it, I'd say. And and his words were, "Wow." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a good sign. I think you liked it." And in
Yeah.
his next words were, "Wow."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it was it again is evidence that we're taking someone to a new place. Um, when you have a virtual reality experience that's good,
Yes.
you've been there. It's like a different dimension that you've entered, and then you take the headset off, and you're back in the real world.
Yeah.
It's it's pretty impressive stuff when it's done correct, when it's
Mm.
done right, and that's certainly the feedback that we've been getting so far.
It almost puts, because I know you yourself have got a background because you trained as a mechanic technician
Mm,
yourself. So it's almost like you can experience what they're experiencing, and that's how you've built the training as well from that point
mm.
of view.
Yeah, yeah. In many ways, that's how all of our training is
Yeah,
designed.
yeah,
It's we try and imagine being a learner that doesn't know yet whatever it is we
yes,
want to teach them. And we try and put ourselves in their shoes and try and make sure that the sorts of questions that we may have been have been answered. Um, so, the target is for a learner to not need to ask a question because
yes,
it's so clear.
yeah,
Easier said than done to achieve, but
mm,
that's kind of what we do with our online videos, and that's what we're doing with our virtual
mm.
reality experiences as well.
I mean, what you're saying, I mean, this is mine and it's not completely virtual reality. I've changed gyms. I've gone to a gym and I had an induction and there wasn't that many staff around. And then on the wall, there was a gadget and she was introducing me to their virtual trainer.
Mm.
And I thought of
Uh,
you and I thought, okay, I'm sure you still need the human element. Do you agree or not?
I would think humans need to
Mm.
always be an important part.
Yeah.
If we design out the requirement for humans in all area of life, then what are we all going to do?
Yes, exactly.
We've got a bit of a problem ahead of us.
Yeah.
Um, but if we can ensure that learning experiences are maximized, so when time and money is invested into people, that time and money has been invested wisely, and those people go up a level from that educational input in the smoothest, most efficient way possible.
Mm.
And I think technology can help us achieve that. And I think um, the human touches too are
Yeah.
a massive positive.
Mm. I mean, it's quite distance, 5 years in time, because it already sounds exciting. How could you see VR changing? VR training in the automotive industry? How could you see it changing, developing?
Yeah, yeah. Well, every time you create new models, 3D models that
Yes.
you can put into a virtual reality world, um, you have one more model that can be interacted with. So every time people invest in these models means the virtual world gets more populated with interesting things that can be taught.
Yes.
So unless VR just magically vanishes across the world, and that's not going to happen, it can only increase in use.
Um,
Um, what?
Everybody's talking about AI. Sorry to interrupt you, but
It's all right.
maybe go into this. Do the models have any degree of autonomous? Is that the right word? Can they? Do
Maybe,
they?
maybe. I mean, artificial intelligence could interact with VR very nicely. Um, you could have an artificial, an AI avatar
Yep.
trainer inside that environment who could potentially be the most knowledgeable trainer there is with a
Hmm.
good AI,
Yeah.
if it's possible. Um, you could have AI that is creating the 3D models
Hmm.
all by itself.
Yeah.
So
They still got to be
that,
programmed, but yes. Yeah.
yeah, but if AI is what it's cracked up to be, if it's got access to every single piece of knowledge that's available on the internet,
Yes.
then it should be able to teach itself. You know, it should be able to teach itself what is inside that casing. So whatever, imagine it was an engine or a motor or an inverter. It's relatively easy to like scan a component and end up with the outer skin. But then when you try and take the lid off, there'll be nothing in it
Hmm.
from scanning a model, you're not going to fill it up. But it is possible if artificial intelligence can teach itself through the data it has access to, then you should be able to get it to make a model of an inverter and take the lid off, and what's inside
Yes.
is what would really be there.
Yeah.
Um, it's whether it can get to that point, but
Reliably as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
reliably.
Hmm.
Um, and that's the question that we've all got. We don't know how good it's going to be.
Yeah. Particularly with the EVs, electric vehicles, how do you see VR helping?
Mm,
Because there is a global skills gap. There may be
mm,
stuttering in certain countries or uptake of the vehicles themselves because of the infrastructure, but it's here to stay. So how would you see VR helping with that?
mm. Well, well, there's not many training centers out there that have got 10 different electric vehicles available
No, yes.
for training delivery. Whereas in time, there could certainly be 10 electric vehicles in a virtual reality environment.
Yes.
So,
Wow.
so training providers, if they've got access to the headsets and the software, they could potentially cover off a lot of technical training without the need for those vehicles.
Mm,
Um, and because budgets tend not to stretch that far, then it is possible through VR that these training providers were able to deliver a higher quality training program than what they would without VR's
mm,
existence.
mm.
And also with the consortium model of multiple organizations all chipping in to pay for the development of something that they all
Yes.
want
Mm,
themselves. That's the way of being able to make these things much more affordable. As
mm,
ever, it's about having enough volume to be able to fund the investment in the production of all of these training experiences.
mm. Okay, so for a company, an organization, manufacturer, wants to know a bit more about this tech, hasn't seen it in action, What can they expect from a demo, and how would they go about arranging
Mm,
one?
mm. Yeah, so it's decision makers that we're looking for, really. Um, we're not ready to take it to individuals yet.
Mm-hmm.
And what they can expect is seeing a really good example of what's possible with VR. And it will allow them to make a decision on whether the specific thing that we're producing at the moment, this high voltage isolation procedure, is of interest to them. Um, or it will give them some ideas on what's possible so they can then think through upcoming projects and potentially commission us for the
Mm.
production of said projects for them in the future.
So you mentioned consortium, so obviously because the tech's expensive and time and I presume software and all that kind of stuff as well.
Can be,
Yeah,
yeah. When it comes to cost, it very much depends what people want. Is
yeah,
you can we can create a beautiful virtual reality environment
yes,
with a lovely workshop and a car in
mm,
there where someone can walk around.
yeah,
We can do something like that
pretty
quite
easily.
cost effectively.
Yeah, wow,
It's when we're designing in complex training procedures, that's where more time is
yes,
needed, and
yeah,
that in turn is what affects the
mm,
cost. So it really does depend what people want as to
yeah.
how much they're going to need to invest.
Okay, so the best point of action then for somebody to contact you.
Mm. Go to our website, go to our virtualacademy.com. We've got our telephone number on there. We've got our um, customer service email on there. We've got a messaging system. All of that will make it through to me, and we'd be delighted to have a chat and set up some more demos for people's.
It sounds really exciting, Bennett. It's made me think, oh, I wish I had kept up going with my VR with my VR programming. But I won't. I'll leave it to you because you're obviously the expert. So thank you for your time today, Ben. And it's been great to learn a bit more myself about VR in the automotive industry.
Great. Thanks very much, Tosca. Most appreciated.